Today we're reviewing the most American sport bike, non-sport bike, kind of rally bike that Indian makes. This is the FTR Carbon Edition, by the way, which I have to say is the best looking FTR. And I'm going to talk about some of the changes that they've put in this bike. Pretty big changes, actually, to make it more of a sport bike now than it was, less of a rally bike, although they still do make the rally version. But this is really becoming kind of like Indian sport bike. So we're going to talk about it. I'm going to tell you what I like, what I don't like. We're going to take it on the road, show you all the features, talk about the specs. And at the end, I'm going to tell you what I think about the FTR Carbon. Again, big thanks to American Biker. Come see Rob and the guys if you need a brand new FTR, Indian, used Harley, whatever the case may be. Thanks to those guys for letting me come out. Now, let's go ahead and talk about what makes the FTR so special. So let's talk about the specs here first. This is a 513-pound oil-cooled bike, 6-speed transmission, and now it has like a 32-inch seat height, a little bit over 32 inches. So previous models, you had a 19 and an 18-inch wheel. Now they have 17s. So that helps to lower the center of gravity and also, obviously, lower the seat height, which is great for people like me, 5'7", 5'8" on a good day with a good set of boots on. Regardless, shorter rider means better in this case since they've actually lowered it. LEDs front and rear. You have the TFT display, so this is really nice if it's really sunny or if it's dark outside or cloudy or overcast. This thing is going to shine brightly for you all the time. I actually leave it in dark mode because I think that's where it looks the best to me personally, but regardless, you can change all of that. And the settings inside of here are very simple. It has a nice display, has some good information, but there's not a ton of information for you to look at. This model has ABS, of course, 3.4 gallon tank. Again, that carbon fiber look with the red exoskeleton frame. Dude, and then it's topped off with the gunmetal gray on certain components on the bike. This thing looks freaking premium. Brembo brakes front and rear, and I am bound to screw up some of these names, but it has Öhlins, I don't know. It has a couple of dots above the O, so I'm sure that means something other than English, but regardless, it has adjustable front and rear suspension. You see on the back, it has that yellow shock. Again, it's adjustable. You can see it's kind of like a piggyback, and it's got the reservoir back there as well. You have the carbon fiber front fender back here. And what's interesting is they have like a, not really gunmetal, but it's more of a satin matte type of look on this gray or kind of polished. It's not really polished. It's kind of a satin rear fender right here with the integrated turn signal. And then of course, once you come down to your swing arm, and then it has the license plate cover back here, turn signals down below that, license plate, of course, and all of that good stuff. Lockable fuel cap right here. And of course, some of these features we'll talk about once we get on the road. Oil cooler up front. What I love that they did with the oil cooler is they actually rounded it off to match the curves of the motorcycle. Pegs right here for your passenger and your driver. Of course, this is a completely different position than what the FTRs of old were too, because what they've done is they've actually moved these closer by like 1.5 inches, and they've also set them lower 2 inches as well. So I'm hoping that it'll be a little bit more of a natural position, although this is not my favorite riding position, anyways. Regardless, I'm hoping that it kind of just tucks in really nicely. You also have this carbon fiber headlight cover, which looks pretty freaking awesome too. Now, some of the FTRs will have the little windscreen. I'm not a fan, dude. They stick straight up. They look kind of goofy. So I like the way this one is actually set up. Now, I'm bound to screw this up too, but it's got the Akrapovic exhaust. I think I actually got that right. I'm not sure. You can see on the one side, you have your engine guards. Coming to this other side, you can see you have this really awesome looking seat, dude. This is what you would expect out of a premium type of motorcycle. You got your grab handles here, this red stitching. The seat looks awesome. I don't know how it's gonna actually ride. It doesn't feel too plush, but it looks good. And that's one thing about this motorcycle. It looks freaking amazing, dude. One of my favorite bikes that Indian actually does, because aesthetically, I don't think there's any argument, really. It's not even subjective. This thing is sexy as hell. Indian logo right here on the side. And the little bit of gold that they use with the front and rear shocks and the reservoir on the back. You have the black, you have the gunmetal, the carbon fiber, the red. All of these colors you would think make one odd looking motorcycle, but not in this case. Whoever the engineers or designers are at Indian, those guys deserve a raise because this thing looks freaking awesome. I think that's pretty much it. So we're going to talk about some more stuff on the highway. Let me go ahead and get my helmet on and let's ride the FTR 1200 Carbon. Changed my mind. We're going to rip this thing around town because I think that's where this thing will do the best. And I'm going to hop on here. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, dude. Much shorter than that other one that I rode. I never did a video on that one, but I rode it, and yeah, that thing was tall. All right, got your screen right here, pops up really quickly, works with gloves. There we go. Boom, touch start. Here's my problem. When you're so short, it's hard to back these things up. Even though it's light, it's always hard for me to find those pegs on these bikes, dude. So used to them being out in front of me, or you know, whatever. It's kind of slightly behind right here. All right, let's do it. All right, 2022 FTR R Carbon 1200 V-twin, 60-degree V-twin, by the way. And one interesting motorcycle. They've made some changes for this year, of course, that we've already touched on. You see the display, it even still has the plastic on there. You actually have your mile range, and then you have how many miles is on the odometer, looks like, trip, right? Speedometer, what gear you're in, temperature, and direction. So a nice gauge, man, easy to read. Of course, you got to look down to see it, but regardless, it's still easy to read. If you got to look down to see it, it needs to be visible, right? All kinds of gauges over here. So what I like is that you can turn on your high beams or just flash them from this button over here, or just turn it on right there. Cruise control, you got a little back button here, you know, so you can see your standard ride mode settings, music, phone, gauges. And we're going to keep it on gauges. See if this Silverado sees me. He does. Thank you, brother. Let's see what this is right here. Okay, so that just automatically goes to the gauge, and then you have a couple different options here, so it looks a little bit different. I think I like this one better because it actually has like a actual fuel gauge on the right hand side. That's cool. Let's see what else I got. Okay, that's it. Yeah, pretty simple instrumentation, right? But at least it's a nice display, I will say that. 6-speed transmission. Dude, this seating position is so much better than that other one I rode. We're gonna try it in sport mode here in a bit. So this is what I like, because I'm basically just straight up and down right now. I'm basically just vertical, right? So my back is in hunch, but whenever I need to get in that position, I can get down and kind of make myself more aerodynamic. This might be the only type of sport bike I would ever buy because of that. The handlebars, although they lowered them 2 inches, feels very natural to me, man. My feet are tucked behind me, you know, like a traditional sport bike. I thought this was gonna suck, but I'm really liking this. Turn signals, of course, on the one side. I'm sure they're auto canceling. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm sure they are. Horn, let's see what it sounds like. Kind of like you would expect. And then we have a little function button over here, or a little gauge button. Hold on. Oh, sorry. Not a huge fan of that, because where you gotta, well, once you get your throttle in the position it needs to be in, you could just switch your gauges right there. I'd probably much rather do it from over here, if I'm being honest with you, but it's there. Brembo brakes, of course, you know, 513 pounds. Brembo brakes, it's what, a 4 piston caliber up front, 2 in the rear. This thing is going to stop probably on a dime, I would imagine. Adjustable suspension, so you got 4.7 inches of travel front and rear. So if you're gonna, the handling on this bike just feels really good. You know what, I'm most impressed with the position, the seating position, dude. And so it's going to be a little bit different than most sport bikes, because this thing tops out at what, 77? That's like max horsepower is 7,700 RPMs. Where sport bikes, I mean, hell, we did the CBR 1000 RR. That thing was what, 13,000 RPMs max, 14,000. So where this starts to max out on power, sport bikes in general, that's kind of where they're starting, you know what I mean? So it is different in that way. So let's talk about who this bike is for. I think if you want a comfortable sport bike, maybe you don't want to be bent over, I know I don't. If you don't like that position, but you want a sport bike, something that's quick, something you could ride around town, something you could commute on, go out on short trips with your buddies, this might be a good option for you. I am really impressed because, again, that's one of the biggest detractors for me personally in buying a bike like this. Even if I had FU money, right, and I could buy whatever I want anytime I want it, I still would not be buying a CBR 1000 RR because I can't stand to sit on that thing for more than 5 minutes. Whereas this, I actually can. So I'm going to mention that quite a bit, but that's very important for me. It might not be so important for you. You might say, dude, my back's fine. Like, I don't really care. And that's totally fine. But for me, that's important. This thing's got good throttle response too. 120 horsepower. Like 78, 80 foot-pounds of torque, something like that. And that's just in standard mode. So I know sport mode is gonna wake that throttle up a little bit. I think we're gonna go ahead and change that. So let's do that here really quick. Let's see. Go to gauges. And then here we can change to sport. Now, I won't change it until we actually come to a stop. So it's not gonna like, oh crap, it's in sport now. It's gonna, you know, not gonna like jerk you around. Nice and smooth on the brake. Dude, I'm telling you, I kind of avoided this bike for so long. Because that first FTR I rode, I was not a huge fan of it. And then I got a request to ride an FTR on my last video, and I'm like, it's time to do one of these. And I still wasn't super excited, but the changes they've made with the handlebars, moving them a little closer together and lowering the seat height, this position, I don't remember the original FTR being like this, and I know it was a little bit higher too, so that's a good thing. Of course, that hurts me a little bit because I'm short anyway. So you saw me just with a 500-pound motorcycle, I can't get both feet on the ground. So, you know, it's a little bit of a struggle backing this thing up, even though it is super lightweight. You know, it's just one of those things. 3.4 gallon tank. You know, how far are you going to be going with that? I would imagine 125, 130 miles-ish. I don't know, but decent range for sure, I would say. And I much prefer this thing with these tires as opposed to those knobby kind of rally tires. Yeah, I much prefer this. This actually feels good on the road. It's sport bike-ish, but not totally sport bike. Really interesting dynamic. Clutch engages, really quickly, very smooth. The shifting feels relatively smooth as well. I don't have any issues with that. The seat is firm, so I imagine after some time it's going to start to hurt a little bit, but again, seats are one of those things. It's like exhaust. You're probably going to change it whenever you get the bike. So for what it is, it looks good though. I will say that. It definitely looks good. I don't really like the placement of that turn signal. It's kind of small and a little bit hard to get to. I'm not a huge fan of that. So I'm getting a little bit of vibration there. Let's bring it up to 5th gear. You know? Let's get around this car first. Not too bad at all. Let's try 6th gear, just to see what it's like. Oh yeah, the engine's barely working there. Right under 3,000 RPMs, a little bit over in 5th gear. We'll leave it in 5th. Yeah, this bike is nice, y'all. This is where it's at. If I were to buy a sport bike, this is what it would be, man. Let me get my thoughts together and let's get back to the shop. Let me finish this video out. All right, we're back here at the shop after riding the FTR. Let's talk about some of the things I like. First of all, aesthetics. I mean, dude, for a sport bike, a hybrid, whatever you want to call it, this thing looks incredible. I've said it already. This thing looks really good, man. Love the red striping around the wheels. 17-inch wheels. Gloss, you have the carbon fiber mixed in, and the carbon fiber isn't overdone, right? It is a Carbon R, so they could have went full-blown just carbon fiber everywhere, but they threw it in where it's needed, especially on the gas tank, little accent, you know, areas here and there, but they didn't overdo it with the red. And you can see like that gunmetal gray, the motor in there, top of the heads, all in here, just looks fantastic. And then with the gold front shocks, the gold reservoir yellow, and then this mixed of like this brushed aluminum look, fantastic job. Fantastic job, dude. Really looks nice. Love it. The handling, the speed of the bike, you know, for somebody like me, I don't need 180 horsepower on a CBR 1000 RR. That's just, I don't personally need that. But what I can say is 120 horsepower, 125, 80 foot-pounds of torque, that's good enough for me, man. But that's just me. You know, I ride a Harley most of the time, so I don't get that kind of horsepower anyways out of a stock Harley, you know what I mean? So that's pretty awesome, man. And for an around town ripper, for a commuter, that type of bike, this thing, I think it's really great. This is the only sport bike I would buy, the only one so far, because of the seating position. I'm not super hunched over, my back isn't hurting, like I just got off this thing. I feel great, it rides good, plenty of horsepower. Love the display, love the different modes. Standard mode actually feels really good. I don't even know if I'd mess around with sport mode that much, you know, especially just cruising around the city. I don't know. But you also have rain mode on there as well, so give you a little bit more confidence, tone down that throttle just a little bit. Awesome job there. Love the display, ABS, all of that stuff is fantastic. What I don't like, well, the seat would have to go. The exhaust has a great tone and it looks good, but it just don't sound good. So the exhaust, of course, would have to go as well. This back here, this is pretty standard, right, for your sport bike guys. You know, it just looks ugly, right? I like having the ability to keep my lights, but I'd have to relocate this stuff under here because it just looks bad, you know what I mean? But all in all, there's things like the pegs for this type of bike. What I feel like on this bike is like tucked in underneath, but kind of free up top. Does that make sense? Probably not. But where my legs are positioned, it feels really tucked in and solid, and really makes you super confident on the bike. I felt confident on this bike. But up top, I don't feel like I'm tucked in and hunched over. I feel like I'm free to move the bars, to work the clutch, to work the brake levers. You know, the mirrors look kind of goofy, but, you know, all in all, this is really a fantastic motorcycle, dude. Now, this little area right here, because I'm so short, when I put that foot down, it would just rub the inside of my leg. Not a huge fan of that either, but I would probably just change that seat as it is anyways. Full LEDs all the way around. Yeah. Of course, this being water cooled as well, you know, this would be a great commuter. You know, it's not going to generate a ton of heat while you're in stop and go traffic. Yeah, I'm a huge fan. So glad I got that request to do another FTR, and I'm glad I gave it another shot. The changes they made on this bike absolutely make this, like I said, so far, one of the only sport bikes I would ever truly buy. If you want to check it out, American Biker here in Latson, South Carolina. Talk to Rob. Those guys will take care of you. Thanks again. See you on the road. And as always, hold the rubber side down.